Okay, welcome everyone to another night of the Sonoma Strong Virtual Healing Fair. I want to thank you all for joining and thank all of the doctors and practitioners who are part of this online virtual healing fair. My name is Sherry Pedrioli and I am one of the co-founders of the Sonoma Strong Healing Fair and the founder of Holistic Choices Incorporated, which is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing choices in alternative and holistic healthcare with projects such as the Sonoma Strong Healing Fair, Choices book series, and the Holistic Choices Network. And as I mentioned, it's nonprofit, so the whole company itself is nonprofit, and your donations allow us to continue to do these free healing fairs, whether it's in person or right now virtual. It also helps with the education around with the compilation books, and an author can sponsor a story for a student. So anyway, there's more information about that, but tonight it is all about Sonoma Strong Healing Fair and what we can do for you. And a couple things, just go ahead and keep your audio muted, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and your chat button is located at the bottom of the screen. And right now I'm going to actually turn this over to our practitioner tonight, and she'll tell you a little bit about herself and what she's doing. So at this time I would like to introduce Linda Mechner.
Hey there, hi everyone. I am so happy to be here. It's so nice to be with a group, even though I am sheltering in place. I am a certified holistic health coach, and I came to do this work through my own health journey, which started, oh goodness, it was right after I had I guess I would say somewhere between high school and college. I had some pretty serious health challenges. And long story short, it was always food that helped me come out of the crises that I was having. When I was in high school, or after high school, I was actually sick for an entire year before I was finally diagnosed. And you know, I had mono, and that kept me laid out for an entire year before that was diagnosed. When I was better, even though I was supposedly all better, I was still feeling just as bad as ever. And after another year and a half of going from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, being told that I was lazy, it was all in my head, that I should get over myself, you know, sleeping is what teenagers do. I finally was diagnosed with, chronic fatigue, which is a syndrome, not a disease. Epstein-Barr, which probably most of the population actually has, and oh, by the way, food allergies. And so it was really changing my food, changing diet, that made the biggest impact on my overall health. And that was my first clue that food changed everything. And you know, it's not like you're sick and then you get better and you're just better forever, right? Like health is this roller coaster of up and down. You know, we're better for a time, and then, you know, something happens, whether it's stress or an illness or, you know, childbirth, like, you know, all these different things affect our health. But for me, it was always coming back to food and diet that made the biggest impact for me out of anything. And so that's the path that led me to actually become a health coach and study nutrition. And I'm a foodie. I love to cook. I love food. I think food is an adventure. It's there to be enjoyed. You know, and the question that I chew on, no pun intended, is how do we get the most enjoyment and pleasure out of food while also enjoying the most pleasure and enjoyment out of life, right? And to me, health is not really the goal. Health is the means to enjoy a fulfilling and, you know, having that fulfilled life. So health is the vehicle that allows us to have the life that we want. And here we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and one of the things that I find really interesting is that people who are really tapped into, food and nutrition and, have taken charge of their health in a lot of different ways are not particularly worried about the virus per se. And people who don't understand, who, think that their health is, dependent on a vaccine, on medications, are seems like they're in a lot more fear. And what I wanted to do tonight is just run down some of the, top, highest level, most bang for the buck things that you can be doing with food and nutrition to protect your overall immune system. And I think one thing that not a lot of us realize, or I don't know, maybe we do, because I don't know who my listeners are tonight, but I think we've all heard that 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And, what that means is, I don't think that we, a lot of people really understand what it means. Like, your immune system is in your gut. Does that mean it's dependent on a healthy gut biome? But the fact of the matter is that you actually have a lot of immune tissue that surrounds your intestines. Because if you think about how the human body is built, we're kind of built like a donut. We've got skin on the outside, but we're also hollow on the inside. And so the digestive system does have this extra layer of protection because it's a very thin, your intestinal wall is just a cell layer thick. And so on the other side, and that's because you need the nutrients to get through. But on the other side of that, you actually do have a lot of tissue that, produces white blood cells and is literally responsible for producing your immune response. And so it's in our gut in terms of our gut biome, but it's also around our gut. And one of the things that can really hurt us in terms of immune function is something called leaky gut. At this point, a lot of people have heard of leaky gut. So when you think about, what does eating for a healthy immune system mean? Part of it means you are eating for a healthy gut. And that does include a gut biome and a healthy gut lining. Let's see. And in terms of how do you really think about okay, that's great, Linda, but what do I do, right? And one of the keys is to eat a diverse diet of fruits and vegetables, because those fruits and vegetables have a lot of fibers in them that feed your gut biome. And there's actually 13, well, actually maybe even more than 13, maybe 17 different food groups in terms of your gut biome, because different kinds of fiber feed different bacteria. A healthy gut biome is diverse, it's plentiful, and in order to have a lot of bacteria, you need to feed the bacteria. You can't just take a probiotic and expect that, all of those bacteria are going to be living and multiplying, because without the proper nutrition, they will perish. And there are some strains of bacteria that are more plentiful and others that are more, you just have less of them. But still, part of your health depends on diversity. So your biome depends on diversity of diet, because the diversity of diet feeds the diversity of microbes. And some strains have to flourish in order to give way to some of the lesser strains. It's like, how some plants will only grow in the shade of a tree. It's true in your gut too. In order for some microbes to flourish, you need to have other microbes already thriving. And I'm going to list these out for you, but I don't want to get too off the track right now. So a healthy gut biome is one thing, and a healthy gut lining. And some foods that are very, very nourishing to the gut lining I mean, for me, I would say the top one is bone broth, because it's very high in nutrients that are very healing to the gut lining. And also in the bone broth are a lot of minerals that are also very healing to your entire body. And so when I think about, fixing leaky gut, one of the things that I think of first is bone broth. And, here we are stuck inside with a pandemic. And, in terms of how do you protect yourself from, from pathogens, a healthy gut is just absolutely the number one place to start really focusing in on. And let's see. So in terms of what to eat, nutritionally dense, and I did make some notes so I wouldn't forget anything. So nutritionally dense foods, low inflammatory, and low inflammatory, it's a little different for everyone because, food allergies can be different for different people. I mean, most people think of gluten and dairy and corn and soy as the standard, like, food allergy foods, but quite frankly, you could be just as allergic to lettuce or apples or cinnamon or something you wouldn't even think of. So what anti-inflammatory means from person to person can vary, but figure, gluten is problematic for most people, right? And whether or not you're gluten-free or not the rest of the time, in times of crisis, you want to hedge your bets and avoid things that are inflammatory. So things that have a high impact on blood sugar are more inflammatory. Think meat and dairy is more inflammatory, and that's because of the kinds of microbes they foster in your digestive system. Let's see. Yeah, lower glycemic. You don't want big spikes in your blood sugar when you're trying to be healthy. Because again, insulin, right? When you have a blood sugar spike, your body produces insulin, and insulin in and of itself is inflammatory. So, yeah, so, in times like this, and, it's probably nothing you haven't heard before, right? Like, eat like you eat when you're sick. You want easy to digest foods. You want things that are high, high nutrient dense, not a lot of sugar, a lot of, vitamins and minerals, and enzymatic food, like raw live food can be very enzymatic and very healing. And one of the things that's great about raw juices is that it's also a lot of nutrients that are super bioavailable. The nutrients, you don't have to digest the fiber to get the nutrients out of it. Avoid refined, high sugar, things with preservatives. In the COVID world, some people say, oh, well, alcohol kills germs. So like, yay, alcohol, but it's terrible for your gut biome. So, you're on your own on that one. You have to decide. And, I think a lot of people at this time are, stuck home, bored, anxious, and there's a lot of comfort eating going on. And I would say, we're probably hardwired to do a certain amount of comfort eating. And, I would say if you're going to do that, make sure that you're doing healthy comfort foods. And one of my absolute favorite comfort foods is actually bone broth. And you put it in a pot with some garlic and ginger and soy sauce, maybe a little sesame oil, and then put in some mung bean threads or cellophane noodles, whatever you want to call them. And you just cook them like that until the liquid's all gone. Throw your vegetables on top, like cover the lid for a few minutes. And it's the most delicious, comforting, healthy thing ever. And I don't really have a recipe for that because it's just really hard to mess up. Just bone broth, noodles, flavor, Oh, and sriracha, put some sriracha in there. And okay, so another thing that it's impossible to have a conversation about gut health without talking about stress. And, we can't really avoid stress, but we can certainly impact how it's affecting us actively. And, it's just something that we have to at some point take control of. If we're anxious and fearful and, we have to realize that actually physiologically impacts our health. It impacts our gut health. It impacts our blood sugar. It impacts every single thing. And taking charge of our stress response might mean meditating. It might mean, going out in nature. It might mean unplugging from social media or the news. It might mean actively searching out things that make you feel hopeful and empowered, and not leaving it up to chance. And I had an experience this past weekend that I was on social media too much, and I really felt how it just changed my body. It changed my physiology. It changed my breathing. It changed everything. And it took me probably a good day of taking hold of myself to actually bring myself out of that spin and use all of the tools that I know and have at my disposal to actually physiologically feel like I had come out of it. And again, I'm talking about nutrition, but you can't really have a talk about nutrition without talking about how stress impacts nutrition. Let's see. Okay, so I also wanted to run down some of my, top level immune boosting nutrients. And, these nutrients affect us in so many different ways. But one of the ways nutrients really matters is because the microbes in your gut actually also need some of those same nutrients to thrive. Vitamin D is a really good example. Your gut needs vitamin D. If you are depleted in vitamin D, you might not be able to establish a healthy gut biome. And so supplementation, I think in this day and age, it's really hard to get everything you need from food. I think supplementation is a must. And actually omega-3 fatty acids is another really good example. Your gut biome needs those omega-3s. And I'm just going to read down the list of, like the go-to nutrients. So vitamin D, vitamin A, and I think it's best to get vitamin A from food. And it's actually pretty easy. Just think about orange foods, like maybe, it would be a good time to make some carrot juice or eat some sweet potatoes. But for vitamin A, think orange, and of course dark leafy greens too. Vitamin C, very, very important. Zinc, absolutely an important one for immune function, and selenium. And our soil is selenium depleted. It has been for many, many years. And it's important to get enough selenium for proper immune function. Magnesium is an important one. And then there's a whole world of immune boosting herbs and mushrooms. And personally, I like immune boosting mushrooms because what they do is they make your body, they sort of trick your body into producing more immune response blood cells. And, I think there's some confusion in immune boosting herbs because some herbs are antimicrobial and those aren't immune boosting. Something that boosts your immune system actually is inspiring your body to create more cells and have more blood cells ready on hand to respond to, whatever comes in, rather than just, something that would deal with microbes as they're entering your body. if that makes sense. And I'm not an herbalist. It's not really my area of expertise, but there are, even in the world of immune herbs, there's different kinds. Some boost your immune system, some will support in a crisis, and others are antimicrobial, but they're all like kind of different worlds, different functions. Okay, so that was my list of favorite nutrients. There's so many others. I'm not saying that those are the only ones, but those are really good, easy, safe ones to be supplementing on a daily basis. Especially during this time of COVID. But it's something that I do that all the time. And then in the winter, in flu season, if there's a trip that I'm going to go on and I don't want to be sick for my trip, then I supplement with these immune boosting mushrooms. And there's a formula that I've been using for years called 10 mushroom formula. And it's just, 10 mushrooms that have this ability to make your body produce more of these white blood cells. And it's worked really well for me, except for this year when I just didn't think of it and ran out and got sick in January. But other than that, like when I take them, it works. When I don't take them, it doesn't work. All right, so let's see. Okay, and the food groups. Okay, so vitamin C and zinc, the others you mentioned, what are the food groups for those? So you want to know the food sources of vitamin C and zinc. So a lot of fruits and vegetables are actually pretty high in vitamin C. I think that, sometimes when you're trying to get the nutrients you want out of food, a good way to go is Google like foods high in like vitamin C, right? And some of those you're going to like and they'll be accessible to you, and others it's like, well, that's great, I'm not going to go buy that just because it's high in vitamin C. So basically what you can do when you Google foods high in whatever, you can pick 3 or 4 of like the top ones and focus on those, and it's not crazy making. Like it's too much to remember like 30 foods that are highest in that, but and usually it's better to get the nutrients from vegetables than fruits because fruits are very high in sugar. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And as far as foods high in zinc, I know seafood is very high in zinc. I think pumpkin seeds are high in zinc. But again, like Google foods high in zinc, and then you're going to say, okay, well, I wouldn't eat an oyster if you paid me, but I love pumpkin seeds, or vice versa. And you can find the answer. But I think that for zinc, supplementation is probably a good bet. And, especially when we need to make sure that we're not just getting some, we're actually optimizing our levels. It really is not a bad idea to do some supplementation. And then where do I get the mushrooms? So the 10 mushroom formula, the company that actually makes the 10 mushroom formula is EcoNugenics, and it's based right in Santa Rosa. I think it's a national company though. And there are a lot of different mushroom formulas. You could, astragalus is a really good one. I think I went to Oliver's and I got some astragalus reishi mushroom mix because it was handy. Astragalus is a really good one to boost immune function. And all right, so I'm going to go through these different food groups, and the food groups are food groups in terms of how it feeds your gut biome. So it's not like the USDA food pyramid food groups. It's like, the research shows that these kinds of foods feed, different part of an optimized human gut biome. Not like there's one version of an optimal human gut biome, but, supports that diversity and healthy populations. Okay, so the first food category for the gut biome is cruciferous vegetables, and that would be your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, rutabaga, stuff like that. Those are high in sulfur. And then there's the alum family, which is onion, garlic, leek, shallot, things like that. Third food group is leafy greens, and that would be things like kale, spinach, chard, dandelion, things like that. Next is peas, and that would be your green peas, pea pods. Some people eat pea protein. That can be a good stand-in for peas if you don't want to eat fresh peas. Roots and tubers is another food group. And, if you think about this, it's easy to make one dish that has, a lot of different food groups in it. And when you are planning a stir fry, for example, you might go through the food groups and say, okay, I've got some onions, some broccoli, some peas, some sweet potato. You can design your shopping list in your meals to encompass a lot of what your gut biome needs. So roots and tubers, carrots, sweet potato, beets, things like that. Then you've got your apple family, which would be apples and pears and Asian pears. And that's very high in pectin, which is super, super nourishing for your gut. Very healing for your gut lining too. Citrus is actually its own food group. And that's because of the citrus pectins that feed, niche, strains of bacteria. Mushrooms. So mushrooms are interesting because they're not actually a vegetable per se, it's a fungus. And so what mushrooms nourish in our gut is different from what any other food nourishes. And they're also very, very good for immune function. Nuts is a food group. That is not a food group I can participate in because I'm allergic to nuts, but oh well. And walnuts and pistachios are actually the best in terms of how it feeds your gut biome. Honey is a food group. And again, this is because, honey nourishes niche strains of microbes. And a lot of what I'm going to read after this is like, really, that's a food group? But yeah, and a little bit goes a long way. Like we want to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So we have a diversity of diet, a diversity in our gut biome. Tea is its own food group. Coffee is its own food group. And get this, chocolate is its own food group. Remember, I told you that. Because the next food group, nobody is going to be smiling about. Apparently, crickets and insects, there's something in them that actually nourish, again, like these niche strains of microbes. And I don't expect anyone to run out and eat crickets. But just in terms of diversity, it's interesting. Fish and shellfish. So fish is actually really good. It's also very nourishing to the gut biome. And, it's sort of along the same lines as the omega-3 fatty acids. Your body, your biome needs that. And the shellfish, what the shellfish is made out of, the exoskeleton of shellfish, like shrimp and crab and lobster, it's very similar to what a cricket would be made out of. Grass-fed meat, and I wouldn't say that is, it's the grass-fed meat and A2 dairy. So most dairy in this country is A1, like standard milk. A2 is a more digestible milk protein. And some people that do okay on goat milk, for example, they are actually able to digest A2 cow's milk as well. But the meat and the dairy, yes, it feeds your gut biome. There are microbes in there that thrive on that. But like I was saying earlier, the meat and dairy is more, it encourages more gram-negative bacteria, which is the kind of bacteria that when it dies, it actually causes more of a toxic reaction in your body. You know, that inflammatory thing. And so, you know, I think that for a lot of people, having some meat, some dairy is fine and healthy, and other people don't do well on it at all. But even for those who do well on it, you know, it's still supposed to be a small part of the diet, not a big part of the diet, because then you get all of this gram-negative bacteria that, you know, that has a negative impact on your health. And if you think about a healthy bowel movement, 50 to 60% or more, I mean, some people say 80% of a healthy bowel movement is actually dead bacteria. And so if you have a high population of gram-negative bacteria that's dying every day, that's a lot of inflammatory response every day. Whereas if you're eating more of the fruits and vegetables and plant-based that support more of a gram-positive gut biome, you're not getting as much of that inflammatory side effect, if that makes sense. Okay, and then the last one is actually extra virgin olive oil. And extra virgin olive oil is also very supportive of a healthy gut biome. And so I just ran through an awful lot of stuff, and I would love if you have questions, comments, thoughts, you know, maybe we could open up the line, or you could type it in the chat, either way. And, you know, one thing I will say is that, you know, when it comes to a healthy gut biome, I think variety is one of the keys. And I don't think it's realistic to include all of the food groups every day. I mean, that was 17 separate food groups, including the crickets. And so it's not a matter of eating, you know, some every day. It's a matter of, you know, making sure that you're getting it rotated through your diet so that your gut biome can reflect a diverse diet.
Okay.
So what do you think? You can try some crickets?
Yeah, no. That reminded me of when I was little. I don't know if it's a real thing, but it was they were the chocolate covered ants and bees, and I was like, I don't know. But when you said that, that's where my mind went, and I don't know if it was just candy or if it really was chocolate covered ants and bees. I don't know.
It really was.
But you said crickets, so.
But they have now, which is, I mean, it's like as we think about how our society is evolving, cricket is actually a thing. And I mean, while I would not eat a cricket, like, okay, I could probably deal with some cricket flour, especially if I didn't know.
Think about it.
What's that?
I said if you didn't think about it.
Yeah, if you didn't think about it. Yeah, or if it's your favorite food and then one day someone tells you and then you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, there was a time when, you know, shrimp and lobsters and crabs were like dirt. You know, it's like only peasants that didn't have any choice would eat those.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was great information. Linda, if people have questions for you, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is to just shoot me an email at linda@lindaliving.com. And I don't have the link ready now, but I am doing a coming up called the Resiliency Lifestyle Summit. And, you know, we talk about health all the time, but one of the really important aspects of health is actually resilience. Like, it's not just what you eat, you know, it's not your exercise, it's not your meditation practice, it's how able you are to, you know, roll with and deal with whatever life throws at you. And so the focus of the summit is on this resilience piece, and I'm interviewing experts from around the world on different aspects of resilience and different health perspectives, and how they, how resilience shows up in their practice, and how they recommend, like us, like how we can think about bringing that wisdom into our own lives.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to have, by the time this recording is up, I should have the link ready for you. It's just not ready today.
Okay. And so again, what was that? It was Linda. Can you pick up?
Linda Living.
Okay.
And just shoot me an email from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was some great information.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me on. It was so much fun. I sometimes I feel like I give too much information, like it's too much, but
it's not enough. And I wrote, and I've got lots of notes.
Right. And I think when we really like boil it down to like, okay, so what do I do? It's really simple. Like, have a diverse diet that's mostly plant-based, and make sure to get some key nutrients in there, and don't stress about anything.
Right. Right.
To life right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you, Linda, for all that information. That was wonderful. I am Diana Borges. I am one of the co-founders, along with Sherry, of the Sonoma Strong Healing Fairs. And my business website is borgesexperience.com. And I'm going to give you a little background on the Sonoma Strong Healing Fairs. Let me share with you. So this is our first virtual healing fair, but we have done 3 in-person healing fairs. The first one was in 2017, right after the wildfires came through our area, including a couple other counties. As you can see on the screen, our contact information, our website is sonomastronghealingfair.com. And on there, we have upcoming fair page, which lists all the presenters that are in the series for us for the healing fair. We have a Facebook page, Sonoma Strong Healing Fair, and if you want to contact us about the fair, info at Sonoma Strong Healing Fair. I want to share now with you the list of practitioners that we have. As you can see from this, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Sue Wilhite will be doing a healing session using tuning forks. On Monday, Diana Cola is going to be doing a heart coherence guidance. She actually is trained by HeartMath. And then on the next day, Marjorie Favusi is going to do EFT tapping. And if you go down, you can see all of the presenters. And the last half of April schedule is right there for you. And like I said, all of that is on our website, sonomastronghealingfair.com, under the upcoming fairs page. So I want to thank everyone that participated in this, and especially a big thanks to Linda. That was great information. I learned a lot. Also learned things that I am not doing that my gut would probably appreciate. And for the viewers that are going to be watching after this recording, if you have any questions, you can contact Linda or Sherry and I. And we thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next one. Goodbye.